Hello everyone, War Never Changes here. Welcome to the fourth part of my Warsaken Standard tutorial using the Tabletopia client. Also for this tutorial I decided to spice things a bit and use the entire Warsaken soundtrack, which is available on SoundCloud and YouTube. I hope you enjoy. I will be showing the Lockwood vs Soap match, which we showcased in earlier part of the tutorial. But I will be using the hot seat mode, which you don't normally use when you play against a human opponent. Hot seat mode allows me to use the end turn button to actually swap sides, which makes it easier for me to showcase this match. I also recommend using this if you are playing with a friend from your home. Alright, I'm starting with Lockwood, so first thing I do, I will shuffle both decks and draw 8 cards. I will also be showcasing the mulligan rules, so I will be drawing 8 cards for both players, because this is the state you start the game in. Both players have 8 cards in their hand. Now the mulligan rules work as follows. I'm actually gonna demonstrate it on the soft side, because I kinda like this hand I'm getting on Lockwood. The mulligan rules work so that you get to redraw your hand once for free if you want to. This goes for both players. And if you still don't like your hand, you get to redraw it again, but your opponent gets one more card. If you want to redraw after that, you are unable to do that. So, while I actually have pretty decent hand on both sides, I will, for demonstration purposes, select all my cards and make certain I have the yellow snap here. Go to the deck, shuffle and draw 8 more cards. So this would be soft side's first free mulligan, which is, to say the least, let's say I, for the purposes of not making this game boring, decide to draw again. Now, since this is a second mulligan, I will say that this is my second time, so my opponent will get 1 extra card, and this is my last chance. Whatever there is on this hand will stay. So I will be swapping and turn back to Lockwood. Lockwood has 8 cards, but since I just used the second mulligan rule, I will get to draw 1 more card here. Now, as the phases go, and I'm first player starting, there would be return phase, but there's nothing to return to. I would be able to draw a card, but I'm first, so I don't draw a card. These 2 resources from this territory are already pre-placed, and I don't reduce the leader timers. What I do next turn is that I will produce some resources. And then I get to play cards. I get a pretty interesting situation in my hands, so I will play using these John Rider or Engineer cards, which are 8 cards that produce resources, which have no preparation time. You just need 1 equipment card and 1 generic resource to be played, so I will just use this equipment resource generic and play John Rider. Of course, this gets removed. And as he's entering the play, all his abilities activate, so he gets 1 fuel immediately. Then I'm gonna play the next rider and using 1 equipment for equipment, and the fuel which I just got will be going for generic, and I play the second rider, who also immediately produces fuel resource. Alright, then I will be playing some cards. Let's see. I got really good resource cards in my hand, so there is no reason not to build my game here. So I will be using these 2 fuels as replacement for these generic resources on DS6, which is also a reduced producing unit. But this is a preparation time 1, so I'm gonna flip the card on my hand, put it double resources and put the timer on it. And I'm gonna do the same for the second TX6. Alright. Just gonna correct this one to 1. Okay, good. Now, I have nothing that can attack, so instead of going to battle phase, I'm gonna play this card, Freezing Rainstorm, which says that forces can't attack or block, our territories can produce. Now, if I had attacking forces as a first player, because I skipped to phases, basically drawing and reducing timers, I can attack if I choose to. So it's beneficial for me to use this card. It prevents my opponent from attacking, especially since it prevents power territories from producing. And as you can see, Zoff has a lot of power resource territories. So if this move goes through, he is unable to produce a lot of resources, and as my own territory has already produced resources, I am not affected by it. Additionally, this card stays on the field for both my turn and my opponent's turn, so it gets removed when my next turn starts. Alright, it's Zoff's turn, so he gets to draw one card, since he has no troops to return. He has timers to reduce, and he is a second turn player, so he can also reduce his timers by one. Now there is this nasty weather card here, Freeze and Rainstorm, which prevents my power territories from producing, so I will only be able to produce equipment resources. Alright. But now, I have in my hand Fire in the Fields card, which is a weather territory, which says Weather, Fire. Field territories take 50 damage, and unforgiving place. I can use this weather card to replace this weather card on the field, which means it goes to the discard pile, and this weather affects. And as all weathers affect both players, all field territories now get 50 damage, but Zoff has no field production territories. However, if you take a look at Lockwood, he has this territory that is labeled Territory Fuel, and this territory that is labeled Territory Fuel and Equipment. So these two territories take 50 points of damage. Accidental click there. Alright. And as the resource production, since I mentioned on the last tutorial, always happens if it's possible it can happen. Since I removed the effect that prevents me from producing power resources, these territories will now produce the resource, despite it not being the production phase. This is why weather countering is very important. There are some really powerful plays you can do, like this one. But if you have the means to counter them, you can do that. Alright, now I have produced my resources, so I'm gonna do some things. Well, since Lockwood is playing the resource game, so I'm gonna do the same with Zoff. I'm gonna use one power instead of generic to create the cost of this resource silo building card, which produces some resources every turn. And this is preparant time of 1, so I'm gonna add some bases on it. Then I'm gonna play the other one and use one of the power resources here as a generic, pay for its costs. There we go. Now, what else did I do? There are some cards coming. I could delay those cards, but they don't seem to be very powerful, so I won't do that. I have an optimized outcome, and I just played some resource cards, so I might be able to use something resource heavy. So I will demonstrate deck mechanics. This card has cost of 2 generic resources and 1 power resource, and it let me find a specific card in my arsenal and put it in my hand. So I will use 1 power to cover the power cost, and then I will use these two. Actually, I'm going to use 1 equipment and 1 power to cover the generic costs. Now, I am able to search my entire deck for a specific card, so to make it faster, I will just select all my hand and flip it face down, and then put it on the field. So now my opponent sees I have no cards, but this one for some reason went to my hand, but I think it already... Oh, okay. Just a minor glitch, no worries. So now I have no cards in my hand, so I can just pull all the cards I want here. If you are doing deck search for the first time or are inexperienced at this, I do not recommend you to take your entire deck into hand. I recommend starting with the draw option and picking like 12 cards. I have done this a lot, so I will personally prefer to take the 24 cards at once option. I already know which I'm gonna be finding, and I'm gonna explain why. I didn't get it on my hand though, so I'm just gonna flip this here. So again, my opponent sees that I have no cards in my hand, and I didn't mix the cards. Let's see if I get it this one. I did. Alright. Now I don't need to show this card, as this one lets me put it in my hand without showing it to my opponent. So I just put it on the field and say this is the card I selected. I'm gonna put it here. Then I'm gonna flip these cards. And you do my deck, and you have to wait and see this yellow-orange hue here before you release, so it snaps. You select all these and do the same. And I shuffle my deck. Put these cards back in my hand. And these cards will go to this card pile, and this will go back to the resource bank. And the card I picked is the Apex mech, and this, as you can see, this mech has only generic resources. It's because this is a very special card. It's said limited 1 per deck. You can only have 1 G-Force per deck. They are basically the ace cards on your deck. And it's called G-Force. Since I'm gonna get a lot of generic resources from these cards, I'm gonna go for the heavy hitters on this game. Now I have only 1 resource. I could play Shadow Torso Facility, but it's a building card that can be targeted and it has not that much health. So I'm not gonna put it on the field, because buildings also have the moral penalties if they are eliminated. And that can get really expensive fast, especially since you can lose if your moral value is 0 and your leader is compromised. So I will just swap back to Lockwood and give my turn to them. And Lockwood will draw 1 card. Oh, I'm drawing all the possible resource cards now. I'm gonna go through if they have timers. This is second turn for Lockwood, so Lockwood gets to reduce his timers by 1. I'm gonna explain the leader abilities a bit more specific once it's the time to use them. Then all the timers on the field will play out. And I get to reduce them by 1, so this dice goes off here, and this one flips. And this dice goes off, and this one flips. So both the resource planes are intact now. Now on this space, where you reduce timers, you also use the unit abilities, especially for the units that come to play. So these tier 6s both get 2 resources. And I can add 1 fuel for this. I'm gonna do it for demonstration purposes. I could do it on the resource phase, which is next one. But I'm doing it now because, as mentioned in the earlier tutorial, all the resources produce only once. So even though next is production phase for territories, these units here do not produce resources since they already did that. Okay, gonna put some resources here. I think I might go for some equipment here this time around. Oh, we are gonna see some interesting things on this game. This is a VMD called Nuclear Past. As you can see, it has a really heavy resource cost. Normally it's not easy to play this card, but fortunately we have gotten a lot of resource cards, so I'm gonna go for a whammy here. I'm gonna use these 2, equipment for equipment, 1 fuel for fuel, 1 power for power, and now I need 5 generic resources, so I'm just gonna use these resources. And 1 of these as a generic here, and play this card. And now, as it has a timer of 2, my opponent will know that this is something big. The next thing I will do is I'm gonna get some forces on the field, since I have a lot of 8 units, but they aren't really powerful. So I'm gonna be playing this Panther. I'm gonna use 1 equipment as equipment resource, 1 fuel as fuel, and this one is gonna replace a generic resource from this card. Will be ready next turn. And then, as all my units have 0 attack power, I'm unable to attack this turn, so I will just end my turn. Alright, let's try this again. My client actually crashed hard, so I had to redo the situation. Instead of creating a new game, I decided to replicate the cards as they were, since it's highly unusual to get this many resource production units on the field this early. So I believe it will create a more interesting game to observe, or it will create a more interesting game to watch. Anyways, I just finished my turn with Lockwood, so I'm gonna swap to soft side. So Geoff gets to first remove his meta on the field, since it's his turn after he played it. Alright, he got another one. Interesting. Then I'm gonna be using his leader ability as I reduce timers now. This one goes to 3, and his first ability, which is called Push. Find a specific drone force in your arsenal, show it, and put it with your legion. So for your arsenal is ready. I would say I will use my leader ability now, and I will reset it. And then I will do what I usually do when I'm using deck search mechanics and put the decks on the field, so my opponent sees they are on the field. And the cards are played here. This is, by the way, a vision bug that happens to me today for some reason. As you can see, they are the same cards in the field. So that's the Tabletopia is a client that is created to be versatile, so it functions with a lot of different games. It has its issues with some specific ones, so just be prepared for that. Anyways, I'm gonna draw some cards and see if I find drone. Okay, there are some interesting drones here. This one is really good, but I'm looking for something specific, which would be, let's see, current. The ability says I have to show it, so I will show it. And so my deck. And then this card gets played free, cost, but it will still be, as the ability says, put it with your legion, but it doesn't say it's ready, so it goes to play face down. And just taking these cards back, and as you see, it's the same cards, so the Blitz didn't actually change anything. Again, reminder, this is a generic client that's meant for all tabletop games. It's not the client that is meant for Warsaken game. Alright, I reduced these timers, so I'm gonna reduce these ones on the field, which will be my resource silos. And then I will be removing these power resources and adding these generic ones instead. This one, as I just used an ability to play it, doesn't actually get ready now. Then I will be playing some resources as it's production phase and my territories get to produce stuff. And as I mentioned, the 8 units do not produce twice. Now, since I got this lovely little Apex G-Force card, which I searched for, that uses generic resources instead of specific ones, I see no reason not to play it, so I will be using some of the resources I gained, which should be, by the way, 2 each, not 1, my mistake. And I will be using, let's say, 1 equipment, 2 power, 2. No, wait, let's do it like this. This should cover all the 8 generic resources this one needs, and it is timer 2, so my opponent also will know I have something big coming. Speaking of something big coming, Lockwood played this interesting card here, which of course Sock can see, which has tons of resources used and 2-turn cost, so it's sufficient to think it's something dangerous, so I will be using Calculated Stagnation card here. Which has 2 power resource cost, so I'm gonna be playing the cost, and it lets me increase a specific non-leader timer by 1. Well, these are non-leader timers, so I will increase this preparation time by 1. And doing with the resources, just making sure I actually added this correctly. I think so, yes, good. And I will end my turn on soft side. Alright, I will draw a card. It's a Lockwood. Oh, I got an interesting one, Nathan Smith, Metallurgist. This is an 8 unit that actually increases all the non-soldier forces health, so it makes tanks and planes a lot more dangerous. Alright, I'm gonna reduce timers here. I'm gonna reduce the second ability to 3, and I'm gonna use the first ability on Lockwood, which is called Loyalty, and it lets me draw 2 cards. So I'm gonna draw 2 more cards. Alright, and then I reduce the timers in the field, so this one got increased to 3, so I've got 2, and this one is ready. This is a really useful tank to have, this Hunter Air 2, I'd recommend it as a card. And then my field units produce resources, meaning these planes get 2 generic ones, and the oil engineers get 1. Then all my other territories get what they need. I have plenty of fuel, so I'm gonna use the ore option here on both my bay and big equipment resource. There we go. And now I get to play cards. Now I have a cut corners card, so I could hasten this a bit, but I think it's best to save it later, in case the opponent gets more of those stagnation cards. Then I will choose to play the 5R34I card, because it has deploy mechanic, which lets me search for soldiers, which is of course a deck shortening tool, quite useful. Now I'm getting in a situation where I have plenty of resources, but not that much cards I could play. So I will use 1 power and 1 generic to play the satellite recon card, which lets me look at the top 4 cards of my arsenal and put them in any order I want, as well as draw a card. And this is just a game interface flagging. Okay, so I get to look at the 4 cards I have. I get some interesting ones here. Okay, I get to choose the order, so I'm gonna put this one back first. I've got plenty of resources, so this one goes back after that, and I'm gonna put the counter next. And this one goes top. As the ability says, I then draw a card, so I will draw this card back to my hand, and put this here. Alright. Now I will put this on the discard file, and remove these resources. Then, since I got a really good card, I will play it immediately. This is a 0 preparation time building card, but it's also covered, so it's almost impossible to target this card. And it has the ability like a leader ability, which essentially rotates, so once you use the ability, you can use it again and again and again as long as the timer finishes. So I'll be using 2 of these generic resources here, and 1 fuel, to play the G-Titan missile silo, and as it plays immediately, the resources get removed. Okay, just making sure I'm not making any misplays, alright. And this card gets a timer. So I'm gonna put 2 here. Oh, sorry, messing up a bit. This card gets a timer, so I'm going to put in a 2 here, which indicates the launch sequence. And then I'm gonna fix this one. One thing to know in Tabletopia is that it's really easy to accidentally alter parameters on the field, so pay attention to what you're doing. And I still got plenty of resources to use, so I will... might as well. I will use 1 equipment resource and another one to essentially replace the food resource Nathan Smith needs and play it on the field. Now, Nathan Smith, as I mentioned, is a special card that increases the health of my other units. So to remember I'm doing this, I will just put the token of Nathan Smith and add plus 20 to it. So when I see it on the field, I will remember. Then it's my turn, so I'm gonna attack. And I already saw there's a submarine coming, so I got nothing that can block it, so I might as well attack. I will attack with my Panther R2, and I will target opponent's Bones Research Centers. He has no units to block it with, and builders can't block, so the damage goes through fully. So Bones Research Center loses 80 damage. And I will flip this card in the return position, so it's unable to block should my opponent attack next turn. Then I will end my turn. As it's Soft's turn, he gets to draw a card. Okay, this is a good one. Reducing timers by 1. And this one gets ready. So now I have a submarine on the field. It has a crack shot, which basically lets it hit first in battle, shoot it by another submarines, which is handy. And this one gets reduced by 1. And then I once again produce some resources. Now, I could use the find the field cards to do some damage to my opponent, but I would rather keep it as a reserve to use more meta cards that prevent attacking. Let's see, then I will use some... Well, it's best to get some forces on the field, so I will be using 2 equipment resources and 1 power to cover the cost for this Omega 2 mech. It's important to remember that mech units aren't actually drones since they have pilots, so Sov is not able to search for them using his possibility. Alright, then I'm gonna be using 1 power and 1 J to play this Gear Hornet card, which is a very useful card since it takes no damage from air paddles, so it's a kind of like air play counter, pretty heavy one. I'm gonna be using this one as well, so 1 Jake and 1 power. We play K6 R75 drone, which is also a soldier, so I can use search mechanic to search for it. And it is a stealth, so it's a really hard card to actually block. The tank my opponent has here could block it, but it unfortunately did attack earlier, so it's unable to do it now. And since I still have plenty of resources, I will be playing the GR0H card, and I will use 1 power as power, Generic is generic, and then I will use generic and power to replace the equipment resource cost. It is a bit expensive, but I'd say it's a good thing to do in this situation. Now let's see. Now, as I played all the cards and I'm just gonna play any weathers, I will choose to attack. I do have 2 cards that can attack, so I'm gonna be using them. And since this is a submarine force, you need to have a same type of force unit to block the same type of units. So Navy units will basically be not usually blockable by only other Navy units. Land units will also be blockable by land units unless there is a specific condition that allows it. And air units will only be able to be blocked by air units. Since there are no Navy units on Lockwood's side, this unit will go uncontested. And since the only land units Lockwood has are 8 units, which do not have stealth, and this Panther, which already attacked, so is unable to block, I am able to fully attack with these cards, and I will use them to attack the Vernus Supply Factories card here, since it produces a lot of resources. So I will simply count this 80 and 40 together and reduce this timer by 120. Oh, this counter, sorry. And as this card is attacked, I'm just gonna flip them towards me, so they're unable to block in next turn. And then I will end my turn and it's Lockwood's turn. So Lockwood gets 1 card and reduces timers. So leader timer, first one goes to 1 and the second one goes to 2. This one is reduced to 1 and this one gets ready. And as card gets ready, its mechanics activate immediately. So I would allow usually to delay it until the end of this phase if necessary. I also forgot to flip this card to ready position, which happens before I draw. And this is why I'm really eager to see the final client, which is entirely automated. Now this card says 3 deploy 2 soldiers, find 3 soldier forces in your arsenal, sell them and put them in your hands of your arsenal. So I will do a deck search mechanic, so I will do the usual. And again the game does the usual. I'm sorry, not the game, client. This is, as I said, a universal client. So I'm gonna be searching for 3 soldier forces now. And here's one I want, which is Nathan Smith. I have to show them, so my opponent knows they are soldier forces. I'm gonna take 1 Jun Rider as well. There are no more soldier forces here, so I'm just gonna put this face down. And no idea. Ah, okay. Interesting. And pick this here. And pick this one. Just a reminder, the people who are making Warsaken have nothing to do with this simulator software we are using. I still like it though. I find it kind of fun to play games on Tabletopia. Alright. And now I get to produce some resources, so I'm gonna add some stuff. Sorry, going a bit ahead of myself. Let's start with the field units. It helps to have a certain routine to do things. Alright, now what I'm gonna do is, since I have this card here and it benefits me to get my opponent hindered as soon as possible, I will actually, let's see, I will use the cut corners card, use 1 power and play the cut corners. It will decrease my moral by 2. It's a cost I'm willing to pay. And I get to reduce one non-specific leader timer by 1, and I choose this one. So I just remove this timer and fire this nuclear missile. And of course, remove all the resources. My opponent could check now, if they wanted to, that I have used the right resources. So I should have some replacements have been done there. Now, this one lets me upfront destroy a specific enemy territory, and then 2 other territories each take 50 damage and can produce. So, I already know that this territory is pretty weak. It's easy to destroy, so I just pick something with high health. Dawson City has 450 health, so I will choose to use the nuclear missile on Dawson City. So it will get eliminated. Boom. And my opponent will lose 5 moral. And this territory, of course, is unable to produce. Now, the missile also says that 2 other territories take 50 damage and cannot produce. So, what territory has the highest production? Of course, Bond's Research Center. So, I will take a token here and put top of it to show that it's unable to produce next turn. That is something that I like to do. It's not necessarily, you know, something that you have to do from a mechanical perspective. Then I'm gonna reduce this health of pawns by 50, and the health of the Fermi energy plants by 50. And my nuclear missile goes to the discard pile. Oh, I'm accidentally picking things up. My apologies. Alright, and now I got a lot of things I could do. So let's play another Nathan Smith. So I'm gonna use 2 generic resources. Play Nathan Smith, which costs 1 food resource, so I'm spending 2. And since I now have 2 Nathan Smiths, I actually have another plus 20. But instead of just adding plus 20, I'm just gonna increase this token to 40, so I remember it's like a combined effect. So like 2 cards next to each other. So all my forces, including these ones that are air forces, now have 40 extra health, so this one would be 90 health. And this one would be 130 health, which is quite significant amount. And then I will be getting some forces on the field. So 1 generic and equipment and fuel. I'm gonna get Panther on the field. Face down, of course. And since I got tons of resources, why not use them? Just gonna use these equipments as these fuels as fuels and play a few John Riders. Boom, now I got maximum amount of John Riders on the field, and they also immediately produce fuel. So I'm just gonna attach the fuel cards to them and remove these from the field. And I still have tons of resources, so I'm just gonna use 1 generic and 1 fuel and play this face down for 3rd plane. This is really exceptional amount of resources. I usually do not have this much. And then I'm gonna attack. My opponent has... Oh wait, I forgot something, which I should have done. My bad, so I'm gonna do it now. As you can see, I have this token here on the key item missile. It should be reduced to 1 this turn. My apologies for that. This card actually has an attack power, so I'm gonna use it to attack. And I'm gonna use both of these cards. 20 and 80 damage to hit the Bombs Research Center 400. And there are no units that are able to block this turn, so I'm just gonna directly reduce the health by 100. And now these forces are unable to block. And it's Sop's turn. Alright, so it gets to first ready hit their forces. Oh, interesting. Very good. Alright, and then I'm gonna use the leader timers. This one goes to 1, and the other one, which is the push ability again. I get to choose if I use it or not. Of course I will use it. And I get to find a drone. This is looking a bit hairy for me right now. I think I'm gonna need something... Yeah, I'm just gonna stick to my plan and pick another gear current. Show it, flip it face down and put a timer on it. 1 for this time. And shuffle the deck. And then I'm gonna reduce the remaining timers on the field. So this one fires, which means Apex is on the field now. This one is ready as well, so gear current is on the field. And the last one, which is the Gear Hornet, which also has a single timer. And for some reason, I think it's missing a resource. Alright. It's ready. And I'm just gonna remove these on the field. Since if you are playing with a friend, when they are reducing a resource on the field, it actually speeds up the game if you help them. So for example, if your friend is flipping cards, you could say that, do you mind if I help you remove resources? It's something that helps both of them, you to get the game along faster. Alright, and then I produce things. Okay. Wait, this one is actually ready. Yeah, sorry, my bad. It's also good to keep your opponents in check if they forget something. You know, like sportsman-like behavior is highly recommended. Then I get to produce stuff, so 2 generics for the silos. 1 power, 1. These two don't actually produce anything since they are negated by the nuclear blast. Which is a good thing. As you see, I was by reflex adding resources here, but the tokens reminded me about this. That's why these kind of little helps and aids are quite important. Alright, and then I will actually use the Terrifying Storm, which is a specific effect that says each territory and building does 30 damage. So I will do 30 damage to not only myself, but also to my opponent. And the reason why I'm doing this, let's see, this one has 210, so I'm just gonna, it's 190, after 80, so, and another one 180. The reason why I'm doing this is that this G-Titan missile silo here has an ability called Cover. Makes it really hard to specify this, but Terrifying Storm hits everything, so cover doesn't matter. So this one also loses 30 health. And I know I got some more of those weather cards for my deck, so if I draw another one, I can destroy this silo before it does any significant damage. And also all these territories lose 30 damage. It's a pretty situational, but quite a useful card to have, Terrifying Storm. Alright, and since I got nothing blocking me from attacking, I will attack. So opponent was kind enough to use these cards. Alright, so let's see. Apex can't block the Hunter since it's a stealth. Okay, so I'm just gonna go all in here. And these are the situations where you need to calculate a bit, so let's see what kind of health bars we got from my opponent's side. And what my leader ability is, which is firing next turn. It's called Orbital Railgun. Each enemy territory takes 200 damage. You cannot attack this turn. So if I use my leader ability next turn, all these territories look 200 damage. So I have to keep that in mind when I'm attacking. So what I will do is... This territory has only 50 health, so let's see if I can find 60. Okay, I'm gonna attack this one here. No, wait, actually. Let's go for certain, because it's important for me that this goes through. There are some ways for the opponent to block, which I will show soon. This is actually the first situation we are gonna get into blocking of this match. I'm gonna use the Apex, since it has 240 damage, to hit this one, which has only 420 left. This one, I need to reduce this by 170 if I want to kill it, so I will use this, which is 80 damage. I will use this, which is 60 damage, so that's 140. And 20 more. So I'm just gonna add one of the D6s, but I know they can block this one. I really want that one down, so I am going to do... Did you check on the moral conditions? Opponent has 70 moral. Remember, there are 3 win conditions: destroying territories, taking moral out, or reducing the deck size to 0. So in this case, you can see Lockwood has 70 moral. So I can check if it's possible for me to actually reduce his moral count to 0 by 3 territories, which is not. The highest I can do is 60. It gets really close. So this is a bit very wasteful, but actually. Oh, I have a plan. Yeah, I'm gonna actually, yeah. Nah, let's keep it simple. Sorry, people. Then just gonna attack these guys as well as this one directly there. Alright, so this drone here has 60 damage and 20 health, and it takes no damage during battles. So there is an air unit here, which is a resource plane, which I can use to block this plane. Now normally this card would eliminate this card, but there are these Nathan Smiths on the field, so this plane actually has 90 health. So what happens is that this card attacks this one, and they both get slightly damage while this one gets damage, but they do not get eliminated. So this one goes to the return mode, but doesn't do any damage, and this one is still ready to attack next turn. Now, the current card cannot be blocked by anything since they are naval units, so it will immediately hit the supply factories for 80 damage. And go to return phase. And this one, the 0 heads, does 60 damage. I could block it with one of the Nathan Smiths, but they do not benefit from the, one of the John Riders, but they do not benefit from the Nathan Smith's abilities, since they are physical soldier units. And I try to keep my resources, so I will use him in the blocking department, and we'll just directly do 60 damage here. Just let it through on the Lockwood side. Lockwood side. Then the next one what happens is this combination here, the Omega mech, as well as the G6 R75, and here's the same situation. I could block them, one of these, but I would actually lose a unit, and in case of this Omega mech, it has a Blitz mechanic, so even if I block this, it will still do 70 excess damage too, so it's not actually worth it for me to block it. Which was the same case by this one actually, it also has the Blitz mechanic, I forgot to mention. So I do 40 plus 80, that's 120 damage here. And these go towards the base. And the Apex will do between 240 damage to Box and Go plants. Apex is one of the hardest hitting cards on the game. And that ends the Zob's turn, and it's Lockwood's turn. Alright, gonna draw a card. Ooh, Satellite Recon, that's a cool one. Reducing the leader abilities a bit, and I get to use my second leader ability again. So I'm setting it to 2 and using the loyalty option and drawing 2 cards, which is good for me since I have tons of resources. The next thing that gets reduced is this G-Titan missile. Its ability launch is ready. So I'm gonna reset it to 2. And by the way, I should also remove these tokens here, since the reduction is no longer in effect. So I do 140 damage with this one. I could take out the Bronze Research Center if I wanted to. That's an entirely option that is valid. That's only 20 health. But I have to remember same thing as with Saw. I have a leader ability coming. Nuclear actually does 50 damage to 2 territories and eliminates 1, just like the Nuclear Blast, so I can take that one out with that ability, so I don't necessarily need to take it out with the item missile. So I will just slam the Titan missile on the Fermi energy plants for 140 damage. And the view here shows that it's repairing the launch again. Now these 2 cards are ready. As always, this ability is immediately accurate. And this should be ready as well. I'm gonna save a time bit and just put these here, since they produced that anyway. The mechanics here. And these get fuel each. This is a massive load of resources, by the way. And the territories get to produce stuff. I'm actually gonna take equipment on this one, since it let me choose fuel here and power here. Right. So what I will do, I will put another G-Titan missile silo on the field. And pay the costs like this. There we go. Put it here and add the token to it, so I know it is ongoing timing mechanism, and this one is not damaged. I could play more DX6s, but I think we got enough resources, so that's just a bit of unnecessary. So I will instead play a Satellite Recon and see what I got on top of my deck. And there's the application again. So top 4 cards. And I get to put them back in any order. Oh, okay, this is actually interesting. I know my opponent has some submarines, so I need some subcards. So I don't need this cut corners, so I'm gonna return it to field. I don't need another G-Titan, so I'm gonna put it back as well. This as well. And remember, I get to choose the orders, so I don't actually have to shuffle these cards. So it's always the card I put on top. And I will immediately play this one. So I'm gonna use 1 generic here, 1 fuel here, and 1 equipment here, and just put this face down. There we go. And let's neaten up the board a bit. And then I will attack. Let's see. My opponent just went full ham on all his units, so there are not much that can actually block me. And I got only a few units here, so I could again take out this one if I wanted to, but I want to do something that is specific. Okay, so let's see, this is 80 damage. And 80 to 160. So I'm gonna slap it here. So there's 20 left on that one. And that's all I will do. Then it will Sop's turn. And now this is when things get interesting. In Warsaken Standard, the 5th turn for any player except the first one is when they get their big abilities. This is when things go boom. Alright, first things first, I'm gonna reduce my forces to ready state. Remove the weather card. And draw one card. Okay, my first ability goes to 1, and my leader ability here, Orbital Railgun, each enemy territory takes 200 damage, you can't attack this turn, is ready. So, as it's ready, I'm gonna indicate it's ready by putting the dice top of my leader. I do not have to use it now. I can use it any time in my turn except the battle phase. So I can do everything. I can add resources, I can play cards, and then I can choose to use the leader ability, which I'm gonna do now. So, resources, after I flip this last one up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. Now I have to decide which one is more profitable for me, to attack and take out territories, or just use my ability and take out territories. If I use my ability, I can take out 2 territories. If I use my forces, I could probably take the same amount of territories, but then I wouldn't be able to defend next turn. So instead of attacking with my forces, I'm gonna leave all my forces in defense. And I will use my leader ability, which specifically says that if I use it, I cannot attack. So I will use Orbital Railgun and reset the dice here to 5. Right? Then I will get to do 200 damage to all these territories. So let's start here. Furnace Supply Factories gets 200 damage, so it's basically overkill. It gets eliminated, and it does 6 more damage. And as this territory is eliminated, all the resources attached to that territory are also eliminated, which is a nice bonus. Minus 6. Then the next territory, which is Delphine Bay, will also take 200 damage. So does Trident Oil Fields, as well as Pups and Go Clans, which get reduced to 0. So I'm just gonna use the reset button to put it to 0, and it has 5 moral cost, so I'm gonna reduce Lockwood's moral by 5. So Lockwood is 2 territories or 6 morals, moral from being eliminated, basically. Well, not eliminated, being compromised, which means I can attack them. Now, the next thing I can do here is I can use my Fire in the Fields card, which does 50 damage to full territories. Weather card. I can't attack, but I can use weathers. So these 2 territories that are actually weather cards, field territories, will take 50 damage. And as you can see, one of them has exactly 50 damage. So this one goes boom. And this Trident Oil Fields has 4 moral cost. So once I correct these cards, seems that Lockwood has only 2 moral left, and this territory, which has 90 health, loses 50 and has 40 health left. But unfortunately, this doesn't compromise Lockwood, and even if I did it the other way around, he would still have 1 moral left. So that's lucky for him. Now, I have plenty of resources, I have some cards, I cannot play the second weather card, which if I would do, would take out one of the G-Titan silos, but it would also destroy my own territories, which is a bad idea. I could play the Shadow Torture facility, but it doesn't do much at this stage, only as an intel. So, all I can do really is to end my turn. And Lockwood gets to draw a card. And his leader time is introduced, so first ability goes to 1. And the second ability is ready, but this time I'm gonna use it immediately. This ability is called Nuclear. For each enemy eliminate a specific territory, 2 of their territories each take 50 damage. So what will happen here, I will select one territory, in this case I will select the Wood Power District and eliminate it, and my opponent will lose 6 more. They also lose the power resources attached to this territory. Then the 2 other territories take 50 damage, which means they both get reduced to 0 and get eliminated. -4 and -8, so that's -12. So his moral gets hit to 0 and he loses all Territory stuff is basically double compromised. It doesn't have any special benefits though, but it's always nice to see. Now, let's see what I got left. I can flip this one over, which is my submarine, and it has the pick-up mechanic. It eliminates a specific enemy force this card could block in battle, and the only forces this card can block are navy forces, and my opponent does have some geocurrent cards here. So I'm gonna pick one of them and eliminate them. Pick-up is a really powerful mechanic. It's if you are intended to build your own deck, I recommend keeping it in mind. Then I will just add some resources. I'm gonna run out of generic cards soon. Interesting. Doesn't happen often. If that happens, by the way, I recommend replacing these with tokens. For example, this pile that has 4 cards, I could just put a token and a number 4 on it if I wanted to. Alright. Now, if I can take out opponent's leader this turn, since I compromised him before the battle phase, I can take him out. If I would have compromised him during battle, since all the units attack at the same time, I wouldn't be able to change their targets once territories are down, so I wouldn't be able to finish the game then. But now I have a chance if I'm able to attack. Okay. So I have one submarine, which is gonna, of course, well, I'm gonna go all in, so I'm gonna use everything I got that has a damage value, and attack the leader, and of course I keep forgetting my cheetah and missiles, which should be 1 here. And I'm attacking the enemy leader. Let's see, this one has a stealth, so it can't be blocked by forces without stealth, which means this airplane unit actually cannot block it, because it doesn't have stealth mechanics, so this one goes through. This submarine can attack, but there is another submarine that can block it, and this one has a crack shot, which means it hits first in battle. And unfortunately for me, Sea Wolf has less health than the geocurrent card, which means the geocurrent doesn't actually take any damage since it hits fast. So this one gets eliminated, and nothing happens to this card. Normally they would both get eliminated. Well, actually no, it's a small health, so it wouldn't matter. Sorry, my bad. Then these 2 Panthers are gonna attack, and these are stealth units, so they can go through enemy attackers unless they are stealth units as well. Now my opponent doesn't have much stealth units. There is one, but this has only 30 health. But this is a leader battle, so I kinda have to block. This one doesn't have stealth either, and this one doesn't have stealth. So the only cards that are able to block is basically this card here, and it can block 1. And I already covered this specific trade on the earlier tutorial. It basically means that this has 80 damage and this one has 30 health, so this one gets eliminated. And 50 damage goes through. It's minus 50. This card attacks and nothing can block it, and it does 80 damage. So it means this leader has 10 health left. Now, this unit, which is one of the weakest planes on the game, that is meant to be used for certain soldier forces, actually has a stealth mechanic and attack value of 20. Which means this card is able to take out the leader. Boom, that's a game. I did make one mistake though in this situation. I actually forgot the Nathan Smith at 40 health to my ZS Wolf, so it wouldn't actually be eliminated, so that's my bad, but they would still block each other.
With or without your permission.
Anyways, this was an example game of Standard. As you see, it's a lot more complicated game than Warsaken Blitz, and it's the next game mode to come out once the Blitz client is out. And it's going to be planned to play this with entirely assisted mechanics, and less thinking needed, or the resource management or something like that. I consider myself as an expert on this game, and as you saw, I made a lot of mistakes and forgot a lot of things to do. So this is a quite complex game and really enjoyable once you get into good matches, especially against good players. Even with these decks, that are basically pre-made and you know everything about them. So I definitely recommend you to try it. If you want to learn to play this game on Tabletopia, just go to the Warsaken Discord, which I will put on the link below, and you will probably find a few people, me included, who are willing to teach you how to play Standard or Blitz. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you will enjoy Warsaken.